Japanese internment camps. A change for us all. The military encounters, as well as nativism in the U.S., led to discrimination against the Japanese Americans that was exacerbated by the prejudice of Franklin D. Roosevelt, Japanese Americans' economic status, and the bombing at Pearl Harbor. 1,177 crewmen lost their lives December 7, 1941. Approximately 333 men were injured in the bombing. 160 aircrafts were destroyed and 150 were damaged. Within hours of the attack, America was moving fast into war.
Before we had a little crap game, and I won $60. And I had Liberty the next day, Sunday, so I was going to take a friend of mine from in the gun crew from Kentucky, and we were going to go ashore and celebrate in Honolulu. So I got up early, and I went up and took a shower, and I come back, and I was standing in front of my locker down in the turret, lower handling room, getting ready to change clothes. And we heard some rumbling going on, but of course we didn't know what it was. The chief turret captain come from all the way from chief's quarters up forward, come in the bottom of the turret and said the Japs are bombing us. So we started up through the turret to get up to our battle stations, and my battle station was right up under the guns themselves. I had to put the primer in the breech block when they had it open while they were loading the projectiles and the powder. I put the primer in. Anyway, I was halfway up there on what they call the shell deck where they stored the projectiles when it blew up. And it blew the lights out, and the emergency lights come on, but they weren't very good. But anyway, it's smoky. And I went on up through and got in the gun room, and most of the gun crew was in the gun room then. And it was so smoky in there you could hardly breathe, but the people in charge thought that smoke was coming in the sight ports of the gun. And they said they figured the Japanese were gassing us. Well, it come out that the smoke was coming from below decks. A bomb had went down by turret 4 and exploded, and the smoke was coming from there and up through. So anyway, when they realized that and the strafing kind of settled down, we went out on the starboard quarter deck and took people off that were burned. We've tried to put life rafts in the water, them big balsa rafts, 20 men. Some of them would hardly float without putting anybody in there. They've been painted so many times. But anyway, some of the people coming out of there were burned so bad. The uniform of the day was white shorts and T-shirts, and no protection from the flash burn. So the people that were below decks and up forward got the flash, and people that I knew come out that I had been in the 3rd Division before I went in the gunnery office and in the turret. So some people coming out of there were burned so bad that you'd catch a hold of them, the skin would slip off, and the other arm might be burned crisp. And they still called me by name, and they were burned so much I couldn't even tell who they were.
The Executive Order 9066 was signed by President Roosevelt in 1942. Roosevelt made people believe that he wanted to protect his country, but the order asked the legislative branch to declare war against the Japanese. Japanese Americans protested unfair treatment during the 1940s. Anti-Japanese propaganda increased along the West Coast. They were referred to have peach skin, small slanted eyes, and monkey ears. The propaganda showed the Japanese as the enemy, ruthless, and animalistic. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Japanese Americans were forced into internment camps. 2/3 of the refugees were born in America, and some Japanese Americans tried to enlist in the army to get away from the camps. The internment camps were spare, prison-like compounds, and 4 to 5 families were squeezed into barracks. The camps were surrounded by fences and barbed wire and also had watchtowers. There were many shortages on consumer goods as well. Relocation camps were way too cold in the winter and too hot in the summer. Each room had an oil stove and 1 hanging light bulb. 117,000 Japanese Americans were rescued from internment camps in the first few months. They only had a week to gather their belongings before they were sent away. Japanese Americans were poorly treated and didn't get the full rights of an American citizen. The food was mass-produced, so it was gross and grub-like. While they were forced into the camps for many years, they began to establish communities. They had a school in each camp, they started to form sports teams, and they built their own churches.
Well, it must have left something because up until the time I had gone into camp, everyone referred to me with my Japanese name, which was Kimiko. And so I was always Kimi-chan, Kimi-chan, and that was okay. But I began to sense that it was because I was Japanese that I was in this camp, because I looked around and we're all Japanese, you know. And I think that's when I came to this decision that whenever I get out of here, I'm not going to be Japanese anymore. At that age, it doesn't make any sense, but that's what I decided. I never said anything to anyone, but I remember that near the end, when we were ready to leave, when people would call me Kimi-chan, I would pretend not to hear them. And you know, I could hear them muttering and everything, but I wouldn't hear them. And I figured that's the way I'm going to do it. I'm not going to be Kimiko anymore. I'm going to be May, because that is my name also. And when I never used my name Kimiko after.
In 1988, President Reagan apologized for what had gone on in 1942 and onwards. Each person in the relocation camps were rewarded with $20,000 as an apology fee. The feud was ended on August 4th, 1988. Life is never again as it was before anyone you love has died. Never so innocent, never so gentle, never so pliant to your will.